pleased to give you some information on TIBCO Cloud Integration, really showing you the easy button for connecting and migrating SaaS applications. I'm going to show you how easy it is to get started with a trial, connect SaaS applications together in an approachable yet powerful way using TIBCO Cloud Integration. And really these same tools can be used for migrating data, connecting various data sources, etc. So pretty excited to be here and appreciate you making some time. Before I get started, some disclaimers here. The information is confidential. I'm not going to make any forward-facing statements, but if I did, please check with us before making any purchasing decisions. So enough of the legal. So quick overview of TIBCO Cloud Integration. TIBCO Cloud Integration has capabilities that allow you to basically tackle any integration challenge that you might be faced with. It has a collaborative integration experience with tailored experiences for design. What I mean by tailored experiences, and we're going to specifically spend time on the connect capability, but it's very accessible, meaning that it's easy to step into, and it has very high ceilings, meaning that you can accomplish anything with TIBCO Cloud Integration. So very accessible and very comprehensive as far as what it can do. We can connect to virtually any endpoint with the different capabilities, built on open source, and one thing we're very proud of, it allows integration independence and flexibility. So before I get into the actual demo here, I wanted to talk about the trial process. When you sign up for a trial, we ask you a couple of questions in order to guide you through the experience. And part of the questions are, what do you plan to do with TIBCO Cloud Integration? And we're going to focus in on connecting SaaS applications and migrating data and how you can use the tool to do that. These questions will lead you into a recommendation. And with what we're going to talk about, we're going to recommend using Connect. We've got videos that are available online and a lot of material in our guide center to get you started, both samples and examples to tutorials to a guide toolkit. So I have some links later in the presentation at the very end to get you started, so we can go through that as well. So let's shift over to the live demo. Enough of PowerPoint. So this is the main landing screen for TIBCO Cloud Integration. It all really centers around the fact of creating apps. And really, let's talk about what an app is. An app performs some sort of a business purpose, whether it's moving data, whether it's responding to events that are happening. It all starts really with an application. App is really the container, and underneath the app, you've got flows that control the business logic that's going to be used. So I'm going to explore some of these apps on the screen, but before I get there, I want to show you a couple other things on TIBCO Cloud Integration. So the next place I'm going to go is called the Marketplace. The Marketplace is a great place to be able to discover connectivity that we offer through TIBCO Cloud Integration. Here you can search for different connectors, you can find descriptions of the connectors and what they do, and it allows you to enable these connectors for use. So you'll see various connectors, and there's even connectors that are built by third parties that are participating in the platform. We're really proud of the fact that we've got hundreds of connectors out there and people contributing to what can be done here. So once you've enabled a connector, the next step is really creating a connection. So connection is what allows you to put in the connection parameter, so username and password, and each connection is a little bit different. So I'm going to open up this Microsoft Dynamics CRM connection here, and you can take a look. It asks for the basic questions of what kind of a deployment it is, what's the endpoint, your credentials, how are we going to connect to it, and then you've got some optional parameters that are available which are unique to each different connector, and they allow you to optimize and tune the performance, whether you're going to do things in batches, multiple threads, but really to optimize the experience. One thing that's overlooked a lot of times is this little question mark here, and we've got extensive documentation to guide you through the steps of how to set up a connection, because everyone is a little bit different. Some are OAuth, some have parameters that you need to set within the source application. So take a look at our documentation, and please give us feedback if there's something that we can improve here. So the next step I'm going to go over to, or the next place I'm going to go over to, is tool or environment and tools. This is a collection of other settings that you need to set up based on what you're trying to do. Since we're focused on Connect, I'm going to go over to the agents, which is specific to Connect, and you can tell this by this trademark here, which is for Connect, and you can see this throughout the application as well. So agents are actually what run Connect apps. So an agent can be either in TIBCO Cloud, so we'll manage it for you, you got nothing to worry about, or you might have a database that you're trying to connect to on-premise. So you can install a lightweight Windows agent that'll run and actually runs a compiled app, that app, on that agent itself. It's very easy to install an agent. You just click on install, follow the steps, and you're away you go. So pretty easy to get started here. We'll go back over to the app screen, and I'm going to go through how to set up your first app. It's pretty easy. So you create import, and you select the app type. We've got some guidance that tells you which type of apps and what you're trying to accomplish. For this lesson, I'm going to talk about on schedule, and I just click on create app, and it's going to bring up the app screen, and I can give this an app name. So we'll just call this Tech Series. And from here, I can add in those flows. So those flows are the business processes which this app is going to perform based on a schedule. So once I click on the integration flow, it brings me into the designer. So we're going to give this a name here. So sample flow. And the next step that you're going to want to do is you've already created those connections, and I created them before this session. You just add those connections in here. So we're going to grab something from a customer CRM. Actually, we'll go from a marketing system. So we'll do the marketing system, and it pulls the metadata for that marketing system and all of the actions you can perform. We're going to start and add another one because we want to move the marketing data into, say, a CRM system. So let's do a CRM system. And again, it pulls that metadata and all of the available items that I can perform on that CRM system. So with Connect apps, scheduled apps specifically, it all starts with a question. What do you want to know? So we're going to start with the query block. And if you double click on this, you get into the properties of this. And you can see in red here, we're saying you need to select what are you asking a question about. So let's ask a question about leads. And then I could add optional filters to this of like, well, how do I want to filter this on certain type of leads, etc. Once you do that, then you want to do for each result. So for each answer of the question, what do you want to do? Well, let's create something over on the CRM system. And you've got, over here on the entity list, it's really the same as that pop-up. I can go down here and select where I want to put the leads. And we can type ahead, make it a little bit faster, and then we've got the lead. So you'll see up here, we've got validation that tells you, if something's not quite right. So there's no field formula specified. So if I go back over here, we go into the fields. And from here, we can actually drag and drop over into the different panes. So let's get out of this example here and let's go to the ones that I've already pre-built. So we've got use case one here. Really, it's migrating data into HubSpot. So I've got a custom SQL database that I want to move data into HubSpot, and I've got a custom CRM system that I'm moving into HubSpot. Now I've got multiple flows that are defined here, and they'll run in order when I run this app. Or I could run this app on a schedule. So here's the scheduling. I can say it's on demand, run once, reoccurring, whatever I want to do. So if I go into this, it'll be fairly easy to figure out what's going on with this specific app. So it's querying that contact. And we could see if there's any kind of a filter involved. So the filter is email address is not null. So we don't want null. And then it's for each result, it's going to update insert into the HubSpot database. Very easy to do. We'll get into a more complex sample next. Let's talk about, so you've already moved your data, you've migrated, you've moved a bunch of records into a new system that you're using. Well, how do you keep those records in sync between other systems? So this example uses a functionality called net change. So a little bit more complicated. So it's querying that contact, but I can actually use this net change to process each records each time it's run, or to only process records based on a certain date. So TIBCO Cloud Integration is going to track based on the change date and only pick up those records. So you could have this running every 5 minutes, and it's only going to push off records that have changed as of a certain date. You can use the filter. The other powerful feature that you can do is that you can include other data, and I've got that in my next example that I'll show you. So in this one, I'm actually looking up data. So if you notice, I've got another connection down here. So I'm pulling up, looking up data based on a SQL database, based on the email address. I'm pulling in all of this extra data. And based on the results of this, I can do a condition that says, if there was records match, so if it's greater than 0, I want it to actually create a task that says this is a hot lead. So just kind of an example of something that you can do, advanced kind of functionality here. And there's really no limit to the control blocks that you can pop into here. And it really becomes self-documenting. You can really come in and see what people have designed after the fact. So let's go into another complex example, getting a little bit progressively more complex. And this is HubSpot into Salesforce. So here's the flow. Again, starting off with that question, it's querying company. And then for each result, and actually let me go into the company here. So I could do that net change again, but I'm gonna include extra information. I'm gonna include the company contact information. So a company always has contacts, typically they do. So I wanna pull that in at the same time, and I wanna return records with or without this relationship. So I can upsert those accounts into Salesforce, and then I can do a control block for each child and upsert the contacts at the same time. Then I can go and fetch details regarding the opportunity from HubSpot, regarding the deal, and upsert those opportunities into Salesforce. Pretty easy to do. I've been able to explain the logic here because it's really self-documenting. And I could add to this as I see fit. I could add additional connections, whatever I want to do if I want to pull in additional data. So the next example I wanted to show you, and it relates directly to migration and also data warehouses for that matter, is a replication type of application. So replication works by querying a source system at the schema level, so at the business object level, so opportunities, accounts, contacts, etc., and would push them into some sort of repository. So a SQL database is the best. So this is a fairly easy one to set up too. You just add your source connection, so we're going to say Salesforce, and you add a target connection, which was MySQL. And then you can decide whether you want to do recommended entities, you want to select manual entities, whatever you want to do, and then you set a schedule. So where is this useful? So if you're doing a migration, you might want to stage the data into a database to be able to take a look at it, manipulate the data. It just makes it easier, depending on the type of migration that you're doing. But you could also use this as a data warehouse. So if you wanted to use a reporting tool like Spotfire by TIBCO, you could use that on top of that SQL database and allow people to do reporting without actually having to access Salesforce. So deals with the issue of licenses and a number of other things that we can solve for you. So before I leave, I'm going to show you the dashboard at the very top. This gives you an overview, an bird's eye view of what's going on with all of your applications throughout the organization. So I can see the top executions, which applications are executing the most, but also at each application level, I can actually do what we call peek, and it allows me to see what's going on. So, I like to say there's a lot of time that's spent on developing integrations, but the time and maintenance of integrations after the fact is where you have to watch things, and drop your sandwich if sales orders aren't being processed. This allows you to see at a bird's eye view and to be able to see exactly what's going on. And if there's issues, you can quickly take a look at what's going on there. So I've only covered the surface of this. Let me go back to the PowerPoint here. Some key takeaways. TIBCO Cloud Integration is a multi-persona iPaaS. We really allow you to empower, or we allow you to empower everybody in your organization, whether it be a business analyst, system specialist, whatever they be, to integrate anything. It's powerful, but flexible. I hope that my demonstration has shown you how accessible this is and how easy it is to get started. TIBCO, we're growing aggressively, adding connectors all the time and investing in innovation. Some resources, so try out a trial today. You can go to cloud.tibco.com. We've got more information, toolkits, and resources. And then a plug for our next session, we're going to be showing off implementing end-to-end API lifecycle with TIBCO Cloud Integration. Awesome speaker, May. Looking forward to seeing that session myself. And if you have any questions, we're here to help.